What if the story of your life began long before your first breath? What if the moment you arrived, the precise celestial arrangement that greeted your birth, was not a random coincidence, but a chosen signature, a cosmic fingerprint left on your soul? This is the ancient promise of astrology, not as a newspaper horoscope, but as a sacred language, a language that deciphers the map of a journey your soul agreed to undertake long before you opened your eyes to this world. This is not about fate written in stone, but about a design whispered in starlight, a blueprint of potential waiting for your conscious hands to bring it to life. From the very dawn of humanity, the wise ones of all cultures looked upward. They did not see a cold, empty void, but a living, breathing library of light. They understood the movements of the planets not as mechanical clockwork, but as a divine language. Each alignment was a verse, each planet, an actor in the great drama of the soul. And you are not an exception to this. You were born in a precise instant, not a second before, not a second after. That instant is an energetic signature, a sacred seal that contains the soul's map. In this exploration, we will delve into what many call the ancient codes, a forgotten wisdom that reveals the sky at your birth does not just reflect your personality, it whispers your hidden purposes, your chosen challenges, the essential lessons your soul came to embody. We will explore the esoteric principle that your natal chart is not merely a psychological diagnosis, but a sacred manuscript, a stellar codex that traces the divine design of your life. We will speak of planetary alignments as energetic portals, of zodiac houses as inner temples, and of aspects as archetypal forces dancing within you. But this will not be a technical astrology class. It will be an initiatory descent, an invitation to read the sky as a mirror of the soul. To discover how Saturn's movement can reveal your karmic cycles, how your natal moon guards the memory of your spiritual childhood, and how the sun in your chart not only shines outwardly, but reminds you of the unique way you are destined to radiate from within. Because to understand your astrological plan is not to predict the future, it is to remember the pact you made before you forgot. It is to recover the sacred language spoken by the ancient initiates, and to recognize that your soul is not lost. It is written in the stars. Stay, because you are about to remember something you have always known. And when you read what the sky inscribed in you, you will never see yourself the same way again. Before astrology was relegated to superficial horoscopes and entertainment columns, it was considered a sacred science, a path of spiritual revelation, and an initiatory tool. It was not born from superstition, but from a deep reading of the soul incarnated in time. In ancient civilizations, the sages did not separate the cosmos from the human being. For them, what was above was a reflection of what was below. This hermetic maxim, as above so below, was not a poetic phrase but an operational law. The firmament was a living mirror, and every celestial movement an echo of internal, psychological, and spiritual processes. In Egypt, temples were built aligned with constellations. The pharaohs were not crowned without consulting the heavens. It was believed that the soul, upon descending into the body, chose a precise cosmic moment that sealed its mission on Earth. That moment was encoded in its natal chart, considered a map of the divine plan. In Babylon, astrologers were also priests. Their work was not to predict trivialities, but to read the designs of the sky to accompany the collective soul in its evolution. They saw eclipses as calls to transformation, planetary transits as cosmic rites, and zodiacal cycles as initiations of the spirit. The Greeks, heirs to this knowledge, gave philosophical form to this wisdom. For Plato, the soul came from the stars, and its return to the celestial world was the true purpose of existence. In his vision, the astral chart was the tympanum of the psyche, the membrane that vibrated with the harmony of the cosmos or its dissonance. It was not blind fate, it was a script for consciousness. Even in the ancient Vedic traditions, Jyotish astrology, the science of light, was taught as one of the 6 pillars of spiritual knowledge. Each planet was seen as a living intelligence, a divine archetype that influenced karma, not to limit the being but to push it to awaken. Thus, throughout time, true astrologers were not mere interpreters of events, they were readers of souls. They deciphered celestial symbols not to control life, but to reveal its deepest meaning. Each chart was a sacred codex, a fragment of the soul in geometric form, a bridge between the infinite and the incarnated. With the arrival of rationalism and the fragmentation of knowledge, this vision was stripped of its spirit, but not extinguished. The flame remains alive in those who remember that the cosmos is not outside, but within us, that we are not lost passengers, but stellar travelers with a forgotten plan. And that plan, engraved in the dance of the stars at the moment of your birth, is not written to predict you. It is written to awaken you. Imagine that before you were born, your soul sat in a cosmic chamber surrounded by the great celestial archetypes. There, each planet offered it an energy, a lesson, a gift, and a test, not as a punishment, but as fertile ground for evolution. Are you ready to incarnate? The stars asked your soul. Yes, your soul replied, and then it chose the exact moment to descend. That moment sealed a contract, a vibrational agreement between you and the universe. That agreement is inscribed in your natal chart. The astral chart is not simply a map. It is a living mandala, an energetic structure that encodes the paths through which your soul will unfold its consciousness. Each planet represents an archetypal force, each sign a vibrational quality, each house a zone of the incarnated soul, and each aspect between planets a conversation between energies that can be harmonic, tense, or challenging, depending on how they are integrated. Let's start with the protagonists, the planets. In esoteric astrology, they are not mere rocks floating in space. They are living entities, archetypal intelligences that inhabit both the sky and your psyche. The sun represents your essence, the solar core of your purpose. Its sign and house speak of how you came to shine, but also show what you will have to overcome, to live not from the ego, but from the soul. The moon, guardian of emotional memory, shows how you were nurtured and how you need to nurture yourself. It speaks of your primary emotional wound, but also of your capacity for inner containment. Mercury reveals how you process the world, how you communicate and interpret reality, but deep down, it also indicates how you translate the language of the soul into human language. Venus and Mars, the dance of desire and action, show how you give and receive love, how you act with passion or avoidance, how you pursue what you value. Jupiter and Saturn speak of expansion and limit, the generous teacher and the demanding teacher. One opens doors for you, the other teaches you to build solid foundations. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto represent the transpersonal processes, those you cannot control but which, if you resist, destroy you, and if you embrace, they initiate you. The houses in which these planets are placed reveal where these energies unfold. Is your sun in the 12th house? Then the brilliance of your soul is not found on the social stage, but in the soul's retreats, in silence, in internal processes. Is your Mars in the 7th house? Your battlefield is not external conquest, but relationship. And then there are the aspects, those invisible lines connecting planets. A square is not bad. It is a tension between two parts of you that do not yet know how to work together. A trine is not just good. It can become a comfort zone. What matters is how they dialogue. And if you become the conscious mediator of that conversation, this is where astrology becomes alchemy, because when you understand how these energies operate within you, you can begin to work with them deliberately. The unconscious becomes visible, the chaotic becomes understandable, the cyclical becomes predictable. And with that, power is born. The power not to repeat unknowingly, the power to direct energy from the soul, not from reaction, the power to live your design as a conscious art. We have now journeyed through the visible elements of the celestial map, the planets and their alignments. But like all esoteric symbols, the astral chart is also a multidimensional hieroglyph. Its deepest reading is not found in the data, but in the silences between them. The ancients knew that the soul is not defined by a list of zodiac characteristics. They knew that each chart is a musical score, but the soul is the one who interprets it. There are those with a map full of harmony who never activate it. And there are those born with tense, complex, challenging aspects who nevertheless become alchemists of themselves. Here appears one of the most mysterious principles of ancestral astrological knowledge. Your chart does not dictate what you are, but what you have the potential to become. Take the ascendant, for example. Much more than a social mask, the ascendant represents the soul's entrance door into the body, the frequency with which the spirit began its earthly journey. It is not just how others perceive you, it is the basic attitude your soul chose to navigate the density of this world. An ascendant in Scorpio does not only indicate intensity, it reveals that the soul chose a life of transformation, of symbolic death and rebirth. A life where truth is rested with fire, not with flowers. The mid-heaven, the highest point of the map, represents the culmination of the journey. It is not just career or vocation, it is the solar purpose expressed in the world. It is the place where the soul wants to leave its mark. But even beyond the visible planets, there are subtle points, hidden keys that the astrological sages of the past studied with reverence. One of them is the black moon, or Lilith, which points to the primitive wound of spiritual independence. Where Lilith is, the soul feels an ancient tension between desire and exile, power and shadow. It is a secret code about the memory of your spirit before birth. It does not speak of psychological trauma, but of metaphysical exile. There a force is kept that is only released when you stop hiding it. Another is the North Node, which points to the evolutionary path. It is not what is comfortable or automatic. It is what the soul came to learn, even if the personality resists. The South Node, conversely, reveals already known abilities that, if they become a refuge, halt growth. Here enters the true spiritual work of the mystical astrologer, to teach how to live the chart as a process, not as a sentence. Because no one is their chart. One becomes it when one begins to consciously align with the archetypes that inhabit their map. When you take Mars and turn it into a constructive force instead of destructive rage. When you use Saturn's energy to structure your mission, not to sabotage it. When Neptune ceases to be a veil of confusion and becomes an access to divine inspiration. But beware, here lies one of the most potent and uncomfortable truths of esoteric astrology. As long as you are not conscious of your map, it will live you. You will react from your aspects, repeat the patterns, get lost in the transits, believing that life is just like that. Only when you awaken can you choose. Therefore, more than a map, the natal chart is an instrument of liberation. It does not tell you what will happen. It shows you what is available, what can be activated if you are willing to look with the eye of the soul, not with the judgment of the mind. Thus, the map does not predict, it reveals. It does not bind you, it offers you the keys to the inner temple. And by understanding it from this place, you begin to walk not as a victim of fate, but as a choreographer of the sacred plan you yourself chose before you forgot. Knowing you have an astrological plan is impactful, but living from it, that is an act of alchemy. It is not enough to know your natal chart. The essential thing is to embody it step by step, day after day, in the way you choose to think, feel, speak, and act. Because the map is of no use if you contemplate it from a distance. It must be lived from the flesh, from the spirit, from the will. First, turn your natal chart into a mirror of consciousness, not an excuse. There are those who, upon discovering they have difficult aspects, resign themselves. I'm like this because I have Saturn in the first house. But that is not the way. Your chart was not written to limit you, but to help you see what you are here to transcend. Use each aspect as a door of evolution, not as a justification for your shadows. Second, observe planetary transits as temporary teachers. Each transit, be it Pluto, Uranus, Saturn, or Jupiter, activates parts of your chart as if they were knocking at your door. It is not chance, they are initiatory calls. If Saturn transits your Sun, it asks for structure in your identity. If Neptune touches your moon, it pushes you to dissolve emotional illusions. Do not fight against them. Ask what they want to teach you. Third, honor your North Node as a life compass. No matter how much talent you have in what you already know how to do, the South Node, if you do not advance toward your evolutionary direction, your North Node, your soul will feel stagnation. Each week, ask yourself what action brings you closer to that soul destiny that still feels uncomfortable but necessary. Fourth, create personal rituals in sync with the moons and planetary cycles. Practical astrology is not passive, it is energetic. At the new moon, sow an intention connected to your chart. At the full moon, observe what is culminating and what must be released. When Mercury is retrograde, reflect, rewrite, realign. This way, you do not live on the margins of the sky. You live in dance with it. Fifth, meditate with your personal planets as internal archetypes. Close your eyes and imagine your sun, your moon, your Venus as living figures. What form do they have? What do they tell you? What energy do they emanate? This visualization may seem symbolic, but it activates deep parts of your psyche. Remember, the planets are not only up there, they are also within you. To live from your natal chart does not mean everything is predicted. It means you have a detailed blueprint of your inner temple. And like any temple, it needs to be walked, honored, breathed. Make your chart a silent companion, not a judge. Not an ornament, but an internal master that reminds you every day who you came to be and what parts of you are waiting to be awakened. Now you know, the natal chart is not an oracle that dictates your future, nor a catalogue of traits that limits who you can be. It is an ancestral code, a celestial manuscript that your soul drew before incarnating, knowing that upon awakening, you would read it again. Because in some corner of you, you already knew everything. You already intuited that your wounds were not random, that your talents are not simple genetics, that your life is not an accident. There is a hidden rhythm, a music that has accompanied you since before your first breath. And today, perhaps for the first time in a long time, you are beginning to hear it. You do not have to become an astrologer to live from this code, but you can live with the awareness that there is a sky within you, that the planets are not out there pulling your strings. They are reflecting what you yourself designed as an evolution plan. Spiritual astrology is not about predicting, but about recognizing patterns that repeat until they are seen, recognizing dormant potentials that ask to be activated, recognizing that everything has its time, its symbol, its language, and that you have the keys to interpret it. Imagine for a moment that all your experiences, even the most difficult ones, were chosen for a greater purpose. That every shadow was placed as a teacher, that every planetary alignment was a brushstroke on the canvas of your soul. So, what do you do now with this knowledge? Perhaps you begin to look at your days with more attention. Perhaps you give yourself permission to respect your internal rhythm instead of demanding of yourself like a machine. Perhaps for the first time you feel that you are not lost, but exactly where you need to be. And from there, life changes. Not because the sky changes, but because you begin to read it from another consciousness. The sun in your chart is not just the ego, it is your source of radiation. The moon is not just emotions, it is your sacred root. Saturn does not just limit, it molds you so you can sustain your mission. And Neptune does not just confuse, it invites you to dissolve the borders of illusion. Each one of them speaks to you, guides you, reminds you, because your soul comes from the sky. And that sky in the instant you were born drew you with the symbols of its divine plan. Today, more than ever, you are ready to remember it. And if you decide to listen, your life will cease to feel like chaos and will begin to feel like what it always was. A sacred journey, a cosmic dance, a story written among the stars, but told through you.